The White House is showing signs that it is seriously considering a federal gas tax holiday. President Biden's economic team has discussed the gas tax holiday recently, and is expected to meet later this week for further talks. The White House is under political pressure to do something to provide relief to Americans dealing with high inflation and rising gas prices. The economic storm has seriously created headwinds for Democrats ahead of the midterms. One Democrat told The Hill it's definitely an option on the table, and suspending the federal gas tax would require an act of Congress, but a public push by Biden in favor of the policy could help spur action on Capitol Hill. Some are considering the White House on the idea. A handful of states have already moved to suspend their gas tax, and the White House has already repeatedly said that nothing is off the table when it comes to combating rising gas prices. And next, at a briefing Monday afternoon, whether the administration was considering a federal gas tax holiday, the White House press secretary said that she had nothing new to announce on addressing gas prices. But a few others in Washington say that a federal gas tax holiday would have little impact for consumers. An estimate from the Penn-Wharton budget model released early this year found that suspending the federal gas tax from March to December of this year would reduce the average gas spending by between $16 and $47 for that period. Economists have said that studies have shown that roughly 2/3 of the tax cut would be captured by energy companies. He also argued that a tax relief wouldn't be targeted enough to reach lower middle-income Americans, knowing that wealthy individuals benefit equally from the holiday. The money raised by the federal gas tax also helps provide infrastructure projects across the country, meaning that suspension of the tax could hamper those projects down the road. And Biden has taken a range of targeted actions, including ordering an unprecedented strategy release from the strategic oil preserve early this year and putting pressure on oil companies to ramp up production. The Treasury Secretary told reporters that gas prices would be even worse had Biden not taken actions like he did. Now, if record prices don't subside, that will lead to a higher Social Security COLA in 2023. Yet even with a more generous boost to benefits next year, there's a growing campaign to change the way those annual benefits are adjusted. New Consumer Price Index data for May release shows inflation rose 8.6% over the last 12 months, marking the fastest increase since 1981. And just a month ago, the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said the central bank was not actively considering raising interest rates by 3/4 of a percentage point to fight inflation. Stocks plunged Friday and were down sharply on Monday across the globe. The yield on the benchmark for the 10-year Treasury bond rose to 3.27%, the highest since November 2018. So folks, I want to know your thoughts on this. Is it possible for President Biden to send out stimulus checks sooner than later? Tell me your beliefs on that.
Sole source contracts under the WIC program that created state-by-state formula monopolies, thus exacerbating even further the current baby formula shortage. Together, these policies formed a perfect storm of sorts to drive market concentration and prevent competition. The very conditions that today mean that the closure of even a single manufacturing plant in Michigan can leave millions of American families scrambling to find ways to feed their newborn children. Recent reporting indicates the severity of this problem, showing that the out-of-stock rate for baby formula rose from just 11% in November of last year to over 73% at the end of last month, May of 2022. In response, several major retailers are now limiting formula purchases. These challenges are on top of the financial pain felt across America in the Biden economy. Gas is over $5 a gallon, and parents are having to drive cities away just to try to find food for their babies in America. Now, keep in mind that there is no natural baby food shortage. There's nothing natural about this. Other peer nations, our neighbors, or our counterparts across oceans aren't suffering this. No, this is created by our government, and it's therefore produced a shortage isolated and limited to our shores. And what's been the Biden administration's response? Well, earlier this week, the president's press secretary helplessly flipped through a binder for a total of 20 agonizing seconds when asked what the White House was going to do to help American families who couldn't find baby formula. Her response? Well, she eventually conceded after that awful 20-second hiatus. Quote, "I don't have anything new," close quote. Yep, that's the end of the quote. That's the whole thing. That was her answer. I guess that means President Biden will keep begging foreign countries for more baby formula, just the same way that he's had to beg foreign dictators for more oil. Now, sadly, because government made this mess, it'll take action by the government to fix these mistakes. And clearly, we can't depend on the Biden administration to lead the charge, given the response that we saw just in the last 48 hours. We can't count on them to do it.
Finally, new stimulus checks worth up to $500 will begin going out to low-income households in just a few weeks. Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are now under pressure to increase monthly benefits for all current recipients, everybody. And now the Democrats are changing the price tag of the next fourth stimulus package, so you want to be sure to continue watching this video to never miss out on the most important stimulus check information. Missouri residents who file income taxes would be eligible for a $500 tax credit under a new Republican proposal the Democrats are currently negotiating. The proposal by the Republican House budget leader would set aside $1 billion in state funding for the tax credits. Married couples filing jointly would get under $1,000, and top House Republicans said passing the tax breaks would be the main priority as lawmakers near their deadline to finalize the legislation. Nancy Pelosi and top Democratic House speakers said in a statement that Republicans do not support the idea of spending every available dollar to increase the size of the government, but instead believe that individual people in Missouri are the best decision makers for how to spend their tax dollars. Now, a few House Democrats criticized the measure as a tax break that wouldn't help the state's poorest people in the state of Missouri. Democrats had proposed setting aside $100 million to give $1,000 checks to poor families who have struggled with housing or food insecurity. Republicans voted that measure down, and St. Louis Democratic representative said the Republican proposal is similar to his previous pitch for stimulus checks, but has the inverse impact. The representative said that Missourians know the difference between a stimulus check and a tax break, so House Republicans should be ashamed of this proposal. Do you agree with the Republicans or the Democrats on this? President Biden and congressional Democrats are facing pressure to boost federal crisis-related unemployment benefits for millions of people as the crisis continues to surge and job growth slows. There have been a total of 3 federal jobs aid programs. The programs that were first put in place by the former president's administration lapsed months ago. At the time, an estimated 7.5 million unemployed workers lost their extra jobless benefits. According to estimates from the Century Foundation, an additional 3 million people stopped receiving a $300 weekly boost to unemployment benefits that are provided by their state. Economists and advocates are pushing Democrats and Republicans to pass legislation that will boost unemployment benefits. On May 2nd, NBC News reported that Republican lawmakers in the state of Iowa voted to reduce the number of weeks that jobless people can receive unemployment benefits from 26 to 16 weeks. Also, the legislation will force those receiving benefits to settle for lower paying jobs quickly instead of being allowed to take the time to pursue work that pays the least, as well as their previous positions. Now, new legislation has been proposed that would affect many Americans financially, and states are looking to tax cuts, and states are looking